Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out on the snowy evening. We're going to try to make this without rushing. We're going to try to make this as quick as possible so we can all cozy up in our homes safely. This is meeting number 2, Monday, January 28th. I'd like to just make a couple of comments. All the public that is in attendance, if you could sign in the attendance sheet on the side. All electronic devices should be turned to off or silent, and this meeting will be audio and video recorded. I'd like to have a stand for the Singing of Canada, followed by Councillor Gannan with the opening petition. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, a true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to ask, are there any changes in the order of items on the agenda? Seeing none, I would like, we're dealing with disclosure of pecuniary and or conflict of interest. We have one. Councillor Riley has declared a disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest at the December 17th, 2018 council meeting, for which has been noted on this evening's agenda for transparency reasons. However, Councillor Riley can vote on the minutes, as the resolution that is being presented is just to confirm the minutes are correct. Are there any other disclosure of pecuniary or conflict of interest? Seeing none, clerk. Are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted by section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? Seeing none, we're going to move on to appointments. This evening we have Elizabeth Zimmerman, Executive Director, YWCA Niagara Region, to come forward and make your presentation. Thank you for braving. Although it's not snowing yet, but
it's just starting.
Just starting,
actually.
yes.
And I just thank you for this opportunity, Mayor and Council members. I have some packages here that I will leave, but I have a gift for you as the Mayor. So I'm here tonight to talk about an event that's happening on February the 23rd, coldest night of the year, and to talk about what this event means to our organization. I'm the Executive Director of the YWCA Niagara Region. We provide shelter for homeless women and their families and supported transitional housing programs. This event, Coldest Night of the Year, supports one of our supported transitional housing programs that we operate here in West Niagara. This is a program for women and their families to have supported housing for up to 3 years. And what that does is it helps families to stabilize after and to hopefully, through their work, move out of poverty and to stable positions. So this is an event that supports that work and ensures that we're able to continue to operate this program. We operate this program on behalf of West Niagara Affordable Housing, formerly known as Grimsby Affordable Housing Partnership. We've been doing it for them for about the last, I think it's about 6 years now. And what that's done is ensure that this program can continue to operate. These funds help to ensure we do receive funding through the Region of Niagara's homelessness funding, but we need to fundraise to ensure that we can keep up the quality and capacity of this program. This council in previous years has been a great supporter of this event and has participated. We have through setting up a team, and it's our hope that you will continue to do that this year and continue to support this. We are also advocating that each council, we have been doing presentations to, in fact, I just came from the town of Lincoln and last week made a presentation to the town of Grimsby about this event, but it's also to raise awareness around the need for affordable housing. West Niagara has been one of the communities probably hardest hit with the increasing costs of housing, and I know that we have been challenged to ensure that the units that we provide to our families are within an affordable range. Many of our families may be on social assistance or on Ontario Disability Supports, and currently the rents, first finding a rental unit, but then ensuring that it's within an affordable range has become increasingly challenging for us. So it is also my goal here to raise awareness around that issue in hopes that as a new council and as you're setting your priorities, that affordable housing is one of those priorities that you set. We in Niagara are sitting in an affordable housing crisis. Our shelters have been sitting at 110% occupancy for the last 2.5 years, and that's across the whole homelessness system. This has been really a direct result of the increased cost in housing that we've been experiencing in this region. We as the shelter providers and across the whole system have seen this increase, and we know it's very directly related to both very low vacancy rates and availability of rental units, but also the increasing cost of those units. And we are sitting in Niagara in a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis, and we ask that you, as you're moving through, setting your priorities, also look to that. So this event helps to raise awareness around these issues, helps to highlight, but also helps to raise needed funds to ensure that we are able to give the quality of service that we do in this community. So thank you for the opportunity. I have a hat here for you, Mayor.
I still have last year's hat. There we go.
You got last year's hat? Well, this is the newest hat. I'm also going to ask that we have, and thank you for bringing that along, showing that you have supported this event in the past, and I'm just going to ask if you would put this poster up.
Beautiful.
To raise awareness. It's a pledge-based event. We rely on, oh, you've got your hat too, that's amazing.
There we go. Good job. Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Maybe I'll pass the old one over to Mr. Councillor Cody. He looks.
How to keep your head warm. And I'll just circulate, if I could just.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be great. This package has our most recent gratitude report, annual report. It gives you a little bit of information about our organization and some of the work that we've been doing in the community. And so I will, thank you. And also some information around the event itself. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. And it was kind of a balmy
It was a
evening,
balmy, yes.
It wasn't the coldest night of the year.
Yes.
Although walking around twice, it does actually settle into your bones. It took me a while at the fireplace afterwards to still warm up. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for braving. Hopefully you get home safely, and we will be putting forward a team again, I think, this year.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you for the time, too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then we also have Darren Platakis to come forward and present regarding request to embrace, endorse, and support the Onia Kara Aspiring Global Geopark Project. Please, sirs, if you could come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors.
Good evening, staff, members of the public. My name's Ian Lucas. I'm just here really to introduce Darren Platycus. What we're here to do tonight, as briefly as possible, because we all know why, is to introduce the concept of the UNESCO Global Geopark and present an argument as to why Niagara is exactly the right place for such a UNESCO designation. Essentially, in a nutshell, it's all about tourism. It's all about increasing tourism, increasing existing tourism, encouraging new forms of eco and geotourism. And in particular, it's about getting the tourists away from Niagara Falls and Niagara on the Lake to come to much nicer places, such as the one we're in. But it's around the world, there are 140 plus UNESCO global geoparks, and many of them are in rural areas where there's been a strong desire to increase economic development activity. And almost all of them, the ones where we have data for outside of China, have been successful in achieving this. So what we want to do tonight is present the concept very briefly, as I said, of the geopark. There are, just to be clear right off the bat, because it's a park and because it's got UNESCO attached to it, doesn't mean there are any land restrictions or economic restrictions of any kind. There's no building involved. There's no infrastructure that needs to be erected. It's using existing resources, as Darren will show you graphically. The Geospatial Niagara project has been going for several years, and we have a strong advisory board of directors, whatever you want to call it. It includes representatives from the NPCA, which Mr. Mayor, you'd be interested in. It involves Brock University, Niagara College. Brock, their community research organization, is going to be giving a detailed research paper presentation on February the 7th, and we'd be happy for all of you to, or some of you to, attend. There are still some slots available, and that's going to be a high-level presentation with analysis as to why we think this is a good idea. The other members of our organization include Brock social and cultural research professors, tourism representatives, and people from the business community in Niagara, in St. Catharines, Niagara Falls. We do have some involvement from Niagara Falls from the Convention Center as well. We're supported by the Convention Center, and we have some support from the casino as well. So we think it's not just an economic development opportunity in Niagara, it's also an opportunity, we think, to unite Niagara outside of a political realm. All we hear about these days is politics, 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 and this is a grassroots organization that we're building for a grassroots-based UNESCO Global Geopark where all of the municipalities can participate, and we're going to explain that now. So I'm going to the pronunciation, by the way, everybody has a bit of trouble with it. Sort of Oniagara. What is it? It's actually it is Oniagara. If you just say Oniagara, not Oniakara and all those things. And believe me, we do it all the time. It's the neck between two bodies of water. It's the Mohawk word, and the reason that we're using the Mohawk word is because the other really important element of this is the Indigenous community involvement, not just involvement, but partnership. Mr. Phil Davis, you'll see from your agendas, was supposed to be here tonight as well, and unfortunately had to beg off at the last minute. He sends his regrets. But there is a very large Indigenous component to this that spreads right across the Niagara region. So I'm going to hand over to Darren. I probably haven't left him enough time.
Is this presentation available on your monitors?
Yeah.
Skip through a couple. Thank you for having us come out tonight. Thank you. We're here to present the Coles Notes version of what a UNESCO Global Geopark is, and specifically about the Oniagara Aspiring Global Geopark. And by the end of the presentation, we are seeking the endorsement of the Oniakra Aspiring Global Geopark by the Town Council as we gather support across the Niagara region. UNESCO Global Geoparks are unified geographical areas that have geology of international significance. They're not solely about the geology of the area, they're about how the geology has impacted our culture and our industry and in the areas that they are located. They're a bottom-up approach of combining conservation with sustainable development while involving local communities, and it's becoming increasingly popular around the world. In Canada, beginning in 2010, the first UNESCO Global Geopark was the Stonehammer Global Geopark in St. John, New Brunswick. Next one. The second Global Geopark in 2014 was the Tumble Ridge Global Geopark in Tumble Ridge, British Columbia. And the most recent one in 2018 is the Percé Global Geopark in Percé, Quebec. There are currently 8 other aspiring geoparks across Canada. We are one of 3 that are in Ontario. The other 2 are Big Impact Aspiring Global Geopark in Sudbury and the Temiskaming Rift Valley Aspiring Geopark on the border between Quebec and Ontario. Each and every global geopark strives to incorporate and promote the global geoparks pillars within their respective geoparks and their management plans. And these include education, sustainable, responsible tourism, cultural awareness, and geoconservation and geotourism. So you may ask yourself, why Niagara? UNESCO encourages cooperation with existing UNESCO designated areas and building upon relationships across Canada and around the world and sharing best practices and other forms of research. Promotion and education as it relates to culture is particularly important in the establishment of UNESCO Global Geoparks, not only with local Indigenous communities, but also other cultures as well. The escarpment in Niagara has driven our earliest industry and provides the perfect climate, as you were alluding to earlier this evening, making us Canada's fruit belt. Our wines are world-renowned, and our craft beers and spirits are increasing in popularity around the world. The canal exists because of the escarpment and the stone for the construction of the canal, as well as for some of our most historic designated properties across the region, was quarried out of the escarpment. From farmers markets to hiking and cycling, Niagara is more than just what the average tourist sees. We are fast becoming a 4-season experience destination. For West Lincoln specifically, you have the West Niagara Fair, your harvest routes that happen in October, as well as an extensive cycling network that feeds into the broader cycling network across the Niagara region. And what we need to learn and what we need to know is what other gems does West Lincoln have to share with the rest of the world. Niagara is on the forefront of education and research in agriculture, in sustainability, and a host of other disciplines that are prominent in other global geoparks. The designation would provide another incentive for our post-secondary institutions to attract master's students and postdoctoral students as well. Maximizing Niagara's extensive tourism infrastructure, Oniakra Aspiring Geopark offers a range of unique geological and geomorphological features, which over time have supported a rich cultural, agricultural, and industrial heritage. Oniakra is a network of what Niagara has to offer the world, where each and every resident and municipality has a part to play in the creation of the geopark. Every municipality has a story to tell. The application timeline is providing a series of applications. First to the Canadian Global Geoparks Committee, where it goes through a little bit of vetting and rewriting if it's needed, And then what happens is it gets, we have visitors from UNESCO and from the Canadian Global Geoparks Committee to run through the application and before it goes on to final designation. The designation itself is not a static designation, whereas you would have the World Biosphere Reserve that once you're designated, you have that designation forever. The Global Geopark is, you have to be recertified every 4 years in order to maintain that designation. So that means varying your education components and your community outreach and involving a more ever broader range of workshops and events throughout the community. There are several items that we have in terms of awareness and promotional opportunities. The first in 2020 is the 10th International Cool Climate Wine Symposium at Brock University. We also have the 2021 Summer Canada Games. In 2024, there's a total solar eclipse that's going right across the Niagara region. And if you recall from the total solar eclipse of last February, I believe it was, that went straight across the United States, you had people from the periphery trying to get hotel rooms within that transect of the total eclipse. And the most recent one that was announced is the 2026 World Cup is going to be played in Toronto, or some games that are going to be played in Toronto. So thank you for your time. And in conclusion, the Oniakra Aspiring Global Geopark is an opportunity for all of Niagara to work together to promote what makes our communities and region unique among the other UNESCO Global Geoparks, to educate ourselves and the world about the region that humanity has called home for about 12,000 years, and we are truly unique from the ground up. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, and certainly was interesting and exciting. Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I know you said the Niagara Escarpment sort of is kind of deemed a geopark. Where is the specific location that you guys are sort of?
The geopark is the political boundary of the Niagara region
Okay.
at this time.
Okay. Sorry, I was just, yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to kind of
Yeah.
pinpoint that.
So it's about 1,900 square kilometers
Okay.
in size.
Yep.
To sort of put that in perspective, the Stonehammer Global Geoparks boundary is about 2,500 square kilometers.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions? Regional Councillor Albert Witteveen.
I can speak loud enough. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I guess my thought as, as promoted economic development, thinking it through the way, okay, so we created designation in Niagara. What is the benefit of this economic development that's already that is already happening? When I look at the other areas, I say Niagara Falls is one of the 7 wonders of the world, so we have that interest for tourism already, and then this is just, to me, is I guess pointing out other points of interest in that area. But we already, through economic development, we're promoting cycling, we're promoting many other economic development activities within Niagara, Ice Wine Festival last weekend, those types of things. So I'm just trying to think, so is this filling in a gap? Is there a gap somewhere that the Global Geopark plays
So
in filling?
that's a multi-part question. I'll answer
Yeah.
the first part, and I'll let you chime in because I know you're chomping at the bit on this. So UNESCO Global Geoparks, they offer a different, geoparks are made up of a series of geosites. So just for the sake of argument, say there's one geosite in each municipality. They're bucket list destinations for people. Niagara Falls is already a bucket list destination, but under the umbrella of a global geopark, other areas within Niagara are designated as geosites. With the idea is that the majority of people that come to the Niagara region come and visit for a day, maybe two, and then they're gone. A geopark is more of an experiential visit. So it's the tourists come and they embed themselves almost in the community for 4, 5, 6 days because they want to see all of the geosites and not just half of them. If they're here to visit Niagara Falls and see that, then while they're here, they're going to come and see the other 12. And in terms of the cycling networks and things like that, that's what integrates all of the areas. It's not so much about taking tourism away from Niagara Falls or Niagara Lake or those other areas. It's spreading the wealth of what Niagara has to offer the world tourist. And so, you know, farm-to-table restaurants and our wineries and our craft breweries, it raises it up to another level globally as well. Do you want to add any?
Yes, if I can just, I think you said thank you. You said it best with the umbrella organization. The UNESCO Global Geopark is essentially an umbrella branding to group all of the things that you talked about, like the cycling and the Ice Wine Festival, and all of those things, things we've talked about today, under the UNESCO Global Geopark brand, and launching it using that branding to get into a new level of tourism marketing, destination marketing. That the individual components that you were asking about, they don't have the strength of their own brand to have that global reach. The Global Geopark Network has a global reach. When we analyzed the tourism statistics and looked and did the research on, Brock did the research on how we thought we could impact the tourism industry, it was in terms of converting people from no overnight stay to 1 or 2, converting the 2s to the 3s and the 4s, and the 4s to the 6s and the 8s, and having a whole series of commonly branded opportunities that we can offer to people, technologically and physically. So like the Niagara jet boats will adopt the UNESCO branding. Restaurants, theatres, cycling organisations and so on can all adopt the UNESCO branding, and that will automatically enable us to move the word out on Niagara to a much larger tourism directed audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, thank you, answered my question.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I just going through some of the notes here, and it mentioned just modest funding as part of the request there, and related to tangible benefits. Would you be able to enlighten us a little bit what that could cover?
As well. Darren hates talking about money. I don't mind so much, but we are going to be looking at. We've actually got a funding plan that we're going to be presenting on February the 7th, and it's still in the little bit of a working state, but we will be asking for municipalities to contribute modest sums. We're thinking in total for the whole region, less than $100,000, based strictly on population, so it'll be prorated to population. So nobody's going to feel they're funding somebody else and vice versa. So that's approximately what we'll be looking for.
And is that an annual thing, or is this just something to get it kick-started?
We think that it's initially it'll be a Kickstarter, and if the rest of the plan even partially comes to fruition, we've made a very conservative plan in terms of funding. If we achieve that within the first 18 months to 2 years, then we might still ask for more money, but it'll gradually reduce, because we want the park to be sustainable, not only as sustainable economically and also funding wise. It has to sustain itself from a commercial point of view, from a tourism point of view. So we'll be looking for revenue from tourist operators and restaurants and you name it. And there'll be a lot of funded branding opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Any other comments or questions? I have one. It has to do with, so you asked the question, what does West Lincoln have to offer the geopark? And I'm a tree guy. I'm looking at the 8 aspiring geoparks and the 3 that exist. And the Niagara component is the only place in Canada where we still have the Carolinian forest represented. West Niagara has something called the 4th Concession Slough. It's not a very attractive name, and yet it's a tree reserve that runs along the 4th Concession.
right
So it
down.
runs almost lengthways, and I don't know if you're familiar with it
No, I'm not actually.
already.
And this
it
is
runs
the
along,
thing too.
It runs east-west, and it's largely an unbroken chunk of forests, series of forests, very well representative of the Carolinian forest in the escarpment region. Of course, places like Font Hill and Short Hills have some advantages with soil conditions that allow them to grow some really spectacular trees this far north of the Carolinian forest. But you know, as a particular collection of forests, I can think of the 4th Concession Slough or the 4th Concession Bush. But it's a bit of a little bit of a lowland and meandering along the 4th Concession, roughly going from about Victoria Avenue almost to our western edge.
Yeah, and this is the great thing, another great thing about Global Geoparks is as much as it is about educating the world, it's also educating ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I've born and raised in Niagara, and I had no idea
Yeah.
about that, right? So,
It's a corridor also for deer, for
Right.
well, and for coyotes and for other. Well, apparently that's how our cougar came into Niagara too. So, who knows, eh?
so thank you, appreciate that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your
you.
time. It sounds like an exciting project, and we look forward to hearing further on it, how it progresses.
Thank you.
Oh, and there's a resolution. Let me see here, and that is by. Go ahead, Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the Council of the Township of West Lincoln receive for information as presented by Darren Platakis, founder and CAO, Geospatial Niagara regarding Anya Kara Aspiring Geopark Project, and that the Township Council refers to the presentation to staff for a report back to a future committee or council meeting.
Councillors, you've heard the report. Moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Excellent. So we have a new item. I'm excited to have our regional councillor present, who will make his presentation. And Mr. Regional Councillor, I would like you to use the mic because, of course, the audio video would love to hear your voice. You can tilt it down toward you. I know it's been a while since you. There you go.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Madam, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
I know it was a madam back in your day.
Yeah, I had to double check. So anyways, this is, I'm glad to be here as your newly elected regional representative at Niagara Region. I'm kind of here informal this evening to just kind of give a quick update on what I've been working on at the region and kind of get some feedback as what yourself councillors would be looking for me for a further report. So just basically starting in December, like ourselves here, there was lots of orientation and meeting with senior staff, becoming familiar with the ongoings at the region. So that was kind of my December there. January, we've started a full slate of budget review. It's quite an onerous and large process. It's a very large budget with lots of things to consider, to take into consideration. So I've been spending educational moment available to go to those meetings, to ask the questions about corporate services and capital projects and how does this process work. And a lot of, just like here, it's very similar in nature. It's just not something that staff says, well, we want to do this next year. There's reports that have been done over short, like 5-year terms and then out to 10-year, looking at capital improvements and things like that. So, you know, just trying to look at a budget in a discerning method, just as very similar to yourselves here as councillors. So that's basically where I'm at. I guess I should just report. And speaking with the mayor, we've kind of tried to, because it's a new position for myself and the mayor took on most of the responsibility at the region, it's an opportunity for us to kind of cover a little more territory and also bring my skills and my knowledge to where I feel I can help this community. And so between myself and Mayor Bylsma, I've taken on the Public Works Committee. Also I sit on waste management in my what I've done in the past is I was a citizen representative at the Citizens Liaison Committee at Regional Road 12. I've been there, being that landfill was created while I was farming there. I've been actively involved in that in our 4-municipality landfill site. I've always been involved in waste management. I was on a advisory committee on behalf of agriculture. So I've taken on the role to sit on the waste management steering committee, which is more of it's a steering committee versus an advisory level. So that's under Public Works. So being that I carry 30+ years of waste management knowledge and how things operate here within the region, I felt that would be a good fit for myself. I also did request to sit on the Golden Horseshoe Food and Farming Alliance, which is an alliance between 6 regions here in the Golden Horseshoe that discuss and look at agriculture policies and the workings of it. And to me, they just finished an asset mapping project to look at different agriculture asset management. And then so to me, my interest was to try to understand how agriculture functions within the Golden Horseshoe, within the urban-rural divide, and then bring shared knowledge back here and to see if there was opportunities and value added and economic development opportunities for our community to create, to try to build our industrial park, I'll call it, which we're seeing some of that already through some agriculture operations there. And it would be, to me, it's just to look at that on a broader level throughout the Golden Horseshoe. So I'm looking forward to getting on that committee. Their AGM is in May, so as we'll progress through the summer, I'll be able to give updates on that committee. So those are the committees that I've put my name forward to represent us here. So just a couple, not to make this too long, but so here's an example of our 2019 capital budget. So we're working on the capital budget. So this is work in progress. So this is not carved in stone. So these are things that are possibly going to happen. So the region has set aside $1 million to start an environmental assessment of a north-south corridor, which would be extension of Bartlett. There's a process there for that there's I think an opportunity for us, and there's also opportunity for our 2 neighboring municipalities to start this process because they have we'll call it the truck traffic issues coming into their communities, and this would create an opportunity for West Lincoln to create that linkage that I think we all kind of agree we need a linkage to a main artery that will help grow our employment lands. I think that's, most of us understand that we need that connection. Our land is very, I think, affordable, so that would create an attraction to, I think, land, for other people land on the, we'll call it on the corridor, which is the QE versus like land prices there, land prices here, you know, it would be attractive for those that give them a secondary option. Which is another thing that's in the pipeline is intersection improvements from Regional Road 20 from Industrial Park to the Town Line Road, which is Phase 3. There's approximately $3 million slated for that. There's also an intersection improvement on Regional Road 20, including the roundabout at South Grimsby Road 5 and Regional Road 20. There's another approximately $3.6 million slated for that project. And then a couple smaller ones here where the intersection improvements on Regional Road 24, Victoria Avenue, and Regional Road 63, which is Camborough Road in the town of West Lincoln and town of Pelham. They're looking at doing some improvements at that intersection. There's a couple $100,000. There's also a road intersection improvements at Regional Road 20 in Griffin to the Industrial Park. There's a $500,000 slated to improve that. And then there's some capital, basically they call it waste management, but to me, there's there upgrades to the Niagara Road 12 leachate pumping station, upgrades to some I guess upgrades on the site, including improving the waste dump pads to integrate use of tractor trailers into the elevated drop-off depot. That's about $100,000, and the next construction of cell 4 at 12. There's 8 cells that can be created at the landfill site, so it's going into creating the fourth cell, which is because the landfill site is operated by the Niagara region. It's a line item, and that's be started this spring. So that's at a cost of $1.5 million. And then there's some upgrades for the stormwater management pond on site. And I think and that kind of takes care of the landfill, but there was one here, that big one that probably, you know, I felt was would be of interest to us here as we look to expand. You know, what are our constraints to expansion? A lot of it's, you know, water and sewer. I believe we're in good shape with water, but there's also about almost $12 million slated to expand capacity at the Grimsby storage at the treatment plant for storage, and I think that's important as we expand. So does the region with the system, because without that expansion, those are our restricting factors. I mean, if anybody historically has lived here, know that the big restricting factor many years was our water supply. Without, you know, we couldn't approve development because we didn't have that capacity, and that was addressed a number of years ago. And this is this is again looking at future development as we look into the future, as you know, I guess laying out the groundwork for the expansion of our community. So it just, to me, what it does, it shows a commitment from the Niagara region that, you know, that they see us as a growth area, that there needs to be improvements in our infrastructure. And to me, as a taxpayer like us, you know, there's half my money goes to the region, so I would like to see some of that kind of come back to be reinvested into our community, since we are the generators of those funds that go to the region. So that's always a feel good to see some of our dollars come back into our community. That just like anything else, you know, we can't fix it all at once, but through a process we can continue to keep our community in a good state of repair, and also be inviting for those that as we expand we can move traffic through. Now there's a couple big things that may be down the road. There's some capital projects that are being discussed, but I don't think there's no real need here to share. So other than that, that's kind of the, I guess, the highlight, the end of the highlight is that to see funds being invested in our community that are gonna help us grow and be that community that we're working towards. So if anybody has any questions or, for me, I'm good.
Go ahead, Councillor Trombetta.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Whitting. I'd like to congratulate you and welcome you aboard, and looking forward to seeing you actually every council meeting. I won't fill you with a lot of questions and wants and all that due to the storm, but I just want to say that you know, I was really supportive of this position, and in my previous term, we obviously campaigned to multiple municipalities. And I felt that in the previous term that a lot of the regional stuff was sort of hush-hush to councillors. We'd have to ask for it, and then the information would come, but I find that this position is more of a utility for us councillors. I think it's going to help us out a lot more, especially when we're dealing with a lot of the public, with all their questions of, obviously, you've been in this community just as long as my family has. So, I'm quite sure you know of all the needs. But that's one thing that I am glad that we can have you here on council meetings. Again, like I said, there was times where the region was just out there and doing some work, and well, what the heck's going on? We didn't know nothing about it, and we're receiving calls from our constituents. But with this position, I think we're going to get a lot more help of having those answers. But I will, you're just getting your feet wet with obviously all the orientation, and the budget's a real big one, because I am hearing at, maybe I'll save all my questions for next month. I don't want to keep you here real long, but I will have some few, so get ready next month. And
I'll be well rested. And
yeah, I think you'll be well rested, and yeah, we'll probably keep you here a little bit longer than we're probably going to keep you here tonight. So, but again, I want to welcome you aboard, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Anyone else? Councillor Ganane.
Thank you. I also want to welcome you, but I am delighted to hear that you have something to do with the landfill. We had a presentation a wee bit at our last meeting at Public Works concerning the landfill issue. I had some really serious concerns about the size of the segment of people that were represented in the surveys that were done. I've done a lot of surveys, both in my former career as a teacher and many, many surveys since on various committees that I've worked on. And 17% of a population return is thought to be a good survey response. The survey response throughout the Niagara region was, and I was doing my homework with those numbers, 0.02% of the people responded to the open houses. And 450 people out of 326,000, which was 0.137%, still terrible results. And the ladies who presented were defending the questions. I didn't have a problem with the vetted questions. I thought the questions were fine. But the responses were very, very, very weak. And I hate to see, I know everybody's looking to save dollars, but West Lincoln's representation was even smaller. And people are very concerned about what's happening with waste and with the pickup services and so on. So I know that they're trying to revamp it all, but the people who have spoken to me about clear bags really feel it's an invasion of their privacy. It's like somebody's going to police their garbage. So if there is any influence that you have anywhere with the decisions made going forward, or if there's any opportunity for you to question, I'm not expecting you to solve it all. Honestly, Albert, I'm not.
I know enough.
But if there's a way to simply point out that those statistics are not a desirable number to base multiple changes in the system on such small segments of the population. I mean, I have several pages, but I won't do that. But the bottom line is, I'm sort of glad to know that there's somebody there with who's going to at least be able to say, hey, this is, we need to stop and look at what the surveys are actually showing us and what they're actually telling us. I think that it's a very flawed survey. And I'll end it there.
Okay, thank you. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's about the new upcoming contract. I mean, I support the change because, believe it or not, when in 2004 I was, because I sat on the steering committee, I did go to Halifax on the clear bag. And what we're trying to accomplish in waste management is diversion. We're trying to not bury it. And so sometimes, Councillor Ganaan, doing the right thing is not the popular thing. And this is one of those things that change is difficult, and doing good things for our environment is not popular to some people. And so we can talk offline, but really the only changes to the system that they're proposing in this next, we'll call it 7-year contract, is just to go to every other week. Clear bag is there as an item of discussion. I know back in 2006 there was no flavor for it. I pushed for clear bag for 15 years, and I knew that people didn't want clear bag, but the diversion, the numbers on the study show that diversion increased by 15% because you declare privacy, but now it was, you said you're a good steward of the environment, you do recycle, but a clear bag will say you are. And a lot of people talk the talk, but what it did is it really kept a lot of, it made a big difference in the East. Now, whether it's a whatever, but I believe that the clear bag is not something that the region's pushing for. What they're pushing for is the every other week to try to increase our diversion to the goal of 65% that we've been struggling to achieve because we're not doing anything different. So I don't want to engage this evening, Councillor Ganaan, but we can have a coffee. But I just wanted councillors to know that, kind of, just so you know, because I think the story sometimes isn't told. We had a 7-year contract with Emterra. We saved, I was not part of that, we saved $15 million to our residents over the life of that contract. That's why I supported Emterra, because the contract says this is what you must do, shall do, everything else. It saved us as taxpayers $15 million over 7 years. The problem came when Waste Diversion Ontario decided to change the rules to the game and said, well, now we're looking at this and we're thinking maybe we're going to make this a producer responsibility thing. And the region goes, oh, well, we don't want to start another contract and be tied to a contract when the way the responsibilities change, because we receive money back from Waste Diversion Ontario for the amount of recyclables we collect by doing a good job. So they extended Emterra's contract, but Emterra's vehicles were purchased and have a life expectancy. So all of a sudden they started having equipment problems because we asked for an extension. I hope that was shared past Monday. I couldn't make it. And so those were some of the challenges that the region faced. And then, of course, trucks broke down. They had some employment issues. And so the company was fined. Emterra was fined for breach of contract. So they're using those funds to make the system better. Now they brought in Canada Waste to kind of take some of the pressure off to West Lincoln and Lincoln. And they're trying to, we'll say, get to the next contract. And so they're looking at ways to, what can we change? Because once you sign that contract, you're going to be doing business like that for the next 7 years. So you have to kind of be bold and put yourself out there and say, if we just do what we're doing, it's just we're going to do what we're doing for the next 7 years, and we're not going to actually see any improvements. So they have to kind of go out there and say, what is other areas or regions in the GTA doing? And a lot of them have switched to clear bag. Some have switched to every other week with success of diversion. But change is difficult, and it's one of those things. I mean, that's the only thing I get on my street. That's the only thing I get for my taxes is the garbage truck. Well, and the plow today, the plow.
It's
but
the only thing most
really,
people get.
so I struggle with that too. As a taxpayer, what am I getting for my tax dollars? And sometimes you have to say, well, what is doing the right thing? And so I want councillors to understand that how this problem kind of came was because a contract got extended and the provider was not managing and planning for a 9-year contract when he bought rolling stock, expecting it to last for 7 years, and he's not gonna buy a brand-new truck if he's only got a 1-year extension. So there's kind of a business case thing there too. So once the new contract comes out, that new contractor will have to buy his rolling stock that will last that life of the contract. So if we kind of just take a step back, and you can explain that to constituents, because I think most people understand that your vehicle, you buy a vehicle, you amortize it for a period of time, and now you have to drive it an extra 2 years. You're going to assume either more breakdowns or higher cost. So I
I've
think.
been following all of that information,
Yeah.
so I'm well aware of that. But
Okay,
that was why
okay.
I started by saying, I'm glad that you're there.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're there because you understand the situation. I'm glad that you're there. It doesn't make me like clear bags any better for a variety of reasons, but, I mean, we do recycle. But I think the other thing that needs to be considered at this point, and we will talk about it, but that is the fact that there are questions about what's happening to the recycled materials. And we'll just leave it at that as well.
Okay.
But thanks.
Well, love to sit down with you anytime and have a coffee, and we can discuss that.
Any other questions for Councillor? I'd just like to say that on a personal level, I find it excellent at the regional level to have a second set of eyes. As was mentioned, Councillor Witteveen took Public Works. Myself, I took planning. So we took on two of the biggest departments, especially the two that would affect our municipality the most. So I see it as a benefit too. So thank you very much for coming out.
I'm excited for the next 4 years.
Yeah, great. Excellent. With that, you're free to go home and go back to work. So we're moving on to council minutes. Regular. As noted at the beginning of the agenda, Councillor Riley had a disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest with respect to item B in section B of the council minutes, specifically with respect to recommendation report PD 16718 regarding cannabis retail store opportunity to opt out or opt in, as he had personal cannabis stock investments. Councillor Cody, you have that resolution.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the open session portion of the December 17th, 2018 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the December 18th, 2018 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemption provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, Councillor. You've all heard the resolution, moved by Councillor Cody and seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Council minutes special, January 7th. Councillor Gannan, you have that resolution.
I do, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the open session portion of the January 7th, 2019 special council meeting be accepted, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the January 7th, 2019 special council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, Councillor Gannan, moved by yourself and seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to public meeting under the Planning Act. Councillor Jonker, you have that resolution from December 17th.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cody that the minutes of the public meeting held on December 18th, 2018 under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to zoning bylaw amendment, Kevin Top, file number 1601-023-18 be accepted.
You've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Jonker, seconded by Councillor Cody. Was it on December 17th or December 18th? 17th. is it 17th? So there is a typo on here, so that the minutes on December 17, 2018. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? And that is carried. And moving on, we have a public meeting under the Planning Act, January 14. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the minutes of the public meeting held on January 14th, 2019, under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to a zoning bylaw amendment, Township of West Lincoln, marijuana provisions, file number 1601-008-18, be accepted.
You've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Gannan. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to communications, we have one from the Niagara Region, Office of the Clerk, resolution, Councillor Trombetta.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Riley, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of West Lincoln consents to the Regional Municipality of Niagara amending bylaw number 112, 2013, being a bylaw to protect the children and vulnerable people from exposure to outdoor secondhand smoke in order to harmonize the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, including vaping and cannabis.
You've heard the resolution, moved by Councillor Trombetta and seconded by Councillor Riley. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Item 10, under the Mayor's remarks, I have a few. I would like to highlight 3 meetings that have taken place in the month of January. Since we've getting underway, the business of this term. The first meeting took place on January 16th, and it was held at the Meridian Center in Fonthill. And it was a meeting of myself with Steve Clark, Minister Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. I had an opportunity to participate in a roundtable with respect to housing in general. There were builders, there were developers, there were planners, and there were mayors in attendance. I also had an opportunity to have 15 minutes one-on-one with Minister Clark, and I presented the issue of affordable housing in West Lincoln. It was an ask with respect to employers in the area who are looking for laborers to come and work and find affordable housing in our own municipality. I also had the opportunity to promote our community hubs. They have a community hubs program, and we were looking at potential development of a community hub respecting the St. Martin's School facility and the areas around that. And so that was on the 16th. It was an enjoyable opportunity, and I was able to leave our notes and our ask with Minister Clark. The second meeting took place the next day, same location in Fonthill, and it was budget considerations with the parliamentary assistant to the finance, Mr. Doug Downey. This was an interesting format. There were stakeholders from right across the region. There were growers, grape growers, there were land developers, there were planners and mayors from all the municipalities. We had a grand total of 3 minutes, timed 3 minutes. There were about 28 speakers. We had to speak for about 3 minutes exactly, and then they were moved on. And yet, we had an opportunity to promote 3 items in that 3 minutes. One was the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, make sure that that was part of the budget considerations for 2019. I was able to promote a provincial involvement in our north-south route, particularly the area as we cross the escarpment. So I put that forward. And our Ontario grant, we have not received the funds for that because, of course, some of those talks are still in play, and so put forward the the significance of that on our annual budget. It would amount to, if we didn't receive that particular grant, it's in the order of about 900,000. If we didn't, that would be a 15% increase in taxation to meet our budgeted levy. So that gives you the idea of that grant that's still outstanding, which we normally have by this time. So I put those forward to the Parliamentary Assistant to Finance, Doug Downey, and Sam Osterhoff was also in attendance in the previous meeting the day before, but also this one as well. And we have a real asset in our MPP, who's advocating for our municipality excellently. And the third meeting that I'd like to highlight was held this morning. Mr. Trouble and I braved the cold, and we got into a car and we braved actually downtown streets of Toronto. And we had a meeting with the Minister of Transportation, Jeff Urick. We made a 15-minute presentation, one-on-one, regarding our north-south route, particularly the piece for the Niagara Escarpment. And so, we drove about 4.5 hours to make the 10-15-minute presentation, but I think it was well worth it because it puts it on the front page of the Ministry of Transportation. Now, recognizing that a north-south route, we are going to be going through a number of departments and appealing for, some support from Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and so on and so forth. But this was one of the meetings that took place at the Roma conference, which is being held at the Sheraton in Toronto. We got a little bit more bang for our buck because out in the hallway while we were talking with our MPP, Mr. Sam Osterhoff, the Minister Monty McNaughton from Infrastructure. Thank you very much. He happened to walk by, so we did a casual 5 to 7 minute presentation to the Ministry of Infrastructure, so we killed two birds with one stone, and we thought that was good bang for our buck at the Roma conference. Those conclude some of my highlights during the past month. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Report of committee. Planning, Building, Environmental Committee of January 14. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution.
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the open session portion of the January 14th, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items, and I don't believe there were any. Do you want me to do the rest?
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I thought there was.
No, there's more. And that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the January 14, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Now you can.
You've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganan, seconded by Councillor Riley. Are there any items that the members of the council would like to pull? Councillor Trombetta.
Item P0819, Mr. Mayor.
P08-19.
Yes.
So we're going to be voting. Is there anything else that anyone would like to pull? We're going to deal with the resolution that's before us with the exception of P08-19. Any comments or questions on the rest? All those in favor? And that is carried. Madam Clerk, do you have that one specifically?
It's page 77, Mr. Mayor. It's for the councilors.
Okay. I'm going to let the clerk just catch up to us for a second.
77.
I think it balances between
Balances
10, 76.
76, 77.
Just we'll let you move that, Councillor Trombetta. Councillor Riley will second that, and then I'll engage your speaking while clerk
Mayor, thank
types
you.
it up. Go ahead.
Moved by myself and second, I need,
Okay.
she's got it written out properly for me.
Okay. All right. Do you want to say your comments or questions? I know it's a little bit out of order, but we know where we're going. All right. I'll finish my coffee. No problem. We've got time.
Yes, we do.
My family was today too. Did you see him on the slopes? Yeah, it was a rough day out there. It's cold? Cold. Conditions good though? Yeah. That makes it worth it.
have a little bit of a bias. I've never skied any hills other than at West, which
Blue Mountain is good, yeah.
after I moved back from out west, I've never skied it since. One time, sorry, I got back and I went one time to Kitchener and Chicopee,
Oh, yeah.
and I said, forget it. I sold all my equipment and it's just not the same after you live in Calgary.
I know, yeah, I'll believe it. I'm still untainted by mountains. I still think Blue Mountain's pretty decent place to drive in. Sir, you had to make sure there were four. That'd be a lot to say, and you're making Joanne write it.
Yeah, it's funny. My parents, hockey parents, would complain, and my parents would say, try going to watch your kids ski race at 8 in the morning at the bottom of a mountain. Like, you're at least in an arena.
Okay. There we go. Better be an important question.
Sorry, Madam Clerk. Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley. That report PD 0019 regarding changes to marijuana zoning provisions dated January 14, 2019 be received, and that section 3417 of the Planning Act apply, and that no further public meeting is required, and that a zoning bylaw amendment 16-01008-18 option B submitted by the Township of Wesleyan be approved, and that a further recommendation report be presented at a future Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting to present and revise option A once all agencies and public comments have been received and reviewed.
Heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we did this in last on the 14th, there was the bylaw, and one thing that stood out with me in this bylaw was the setback of 150 meters that was in that bylaw. I'm really troubled with that. I would like to see that number increased to 2,000 meters, Mr. Mayor, for that bylaw. I'd like to hope that I have some other support around the horseshoe here, but 150 meter setback on a facility I found was always too light, and I'd like to see 2,000 meters setback on a facility from any dwelling be put into that bylaw, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk. How do we do that? So you're proposing an amendment?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Travel, would you like to speak to the proposed amendment? We don't have necessarily a seconder, or, unless we have a seconder? Okay, Councilor Riley, so it's on the floor. Go ahead.
The report that we're dealing with is that report about cannabis that had an option A and an option B. And the proposal before us tonight is to amend the option A bylaw, if I have the right report in my head. And so tonight, we were recommending passing the option B bylaw, which was to just make a minor tweak. And then we would come back, hopefully in April, with an option A bylaw. So is there any way that the 2,000 meters could be put on the table for us to take a look at and bring back as part of the report for April?
And that's more or less what I'm looking for, Mr. Mayor, just as my comments firstly. So, sorry, Madam Clerk, that for first and foremost is what I'm looking for. If we can see that come back in, when was it, April, Mr. Trumbull? See that come back, a 2,000 meter setback.
And that's what I was hoping. That's why I let, because there is
I'm
more work coming in.
Yeah, there's a little confusing between the A and the B. I understand because it's all new to us implementing this bylaw. But the one thing I guess, and I'm going to say it again, that stood out to me is that 150 meter setback is really light for a municipality. And to see, hopefully that can be reviewed, what my ask is there, Mr. Trouble, and hopefully come back and we can come up with a significant result in April, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So at this point, we're just going to let this slide and take it as direction as an option when this comes back in April, and I think that's totally appropriate.
Great.
We were looking for a quick fix on the change of definitions, and so that it'll serve its purpose until the bylaw comes back. I think we're all satisfied with that.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Any other comments or questions about this item? Then all those in favor? And that is carried. That pen died. Can I borrow a pen? Thank you. Okay, and moving on, we have Administration, Finance, Fire. Councillor Cody, you have that resolution.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganon, that the minutes of the Administration, Finance, and Fire Committee meeting held on January 21st, 2019 be accepted and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items, and I don't believe there's no exceptions.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Cody, seconded by Councillor Ganen. Are there any items that you would like to pull? Seeing none. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. And moving on to Public Works Recreation Committee, Councillor Trombetta, you have that resolution.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the open session portion of the Public Works Recreation Arena Committee meeting held on January 21st, 2019 be accepted and that the recommendation contained therein be approved, the exception of items, it's blank, that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of January 21st, 2019 Public Works Recreation Arena Committee be accepted and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Are there any items that members of council would like to pull? Seeing none, are there any discussion on any of the items? All those in favor? And that is carried. And the definitions of reconsideration are there for your viewing pleasure. And as well as the definition for the motion to rescind. Other business. Treasurer, Director of Finance, Donna DeFilippis. First motion, Councillor Jonker, you have the first resolution to approve the Treasurer, Director of Finance report.
that report RFD-T-2-19 regarding authorizing resolution regarding BMO One Card Purchasing Card Program be received, and that council approve the resolution attached as Schedule A to this report to authorize staff to enter into a purchasing card agreement with Bank of Montreal. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Gaines.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We have a second motion. Councilor Jonker, you have the second resolution as well.
Yes, sorry, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Cody. Whereas the corporation has the power and capacity to borrow money upon the credit of the corporation and to mortgage and charge all or any of the real and personal property of the corporation. And whereas it is in the best interest of the corporation to enter into an arrangement with the Bank of Montreal, BMO, to provide the corporation with credit by way of a corporate credit card account. Now therefore be it resolved that, 1, that the corporation is hereby authorized to enter into an arrangement with BMO to provide the corporation with credit by way of an account, under which arrangement the corporation may request that BMO issue cards on the account, and the corporation will be responsible for the payment of all amounts, including fees and interest charged to the account. The whole sustainability on the terms and conditions set out in the draft corporation card agreement, submitted to and hereby approved by the directors. Second, that any two of the following persons with the titles of Mayor, CAO, Treasurer, Clerk, Deputy Treasurer are hereby authorized to sign the agreement with BMO substantially on the terms and conditions of the draft thereof approved by the directors, with such changes or modifications as the persons so signing may in their sole discretion deem appropriate, and to sign from time to time such other documents, agreements, amendments to, and restatements of the agreement, and to do such other things they in their sole discretion deem appropriate or advisable in connection with, or to give effect to such agreement and the program contemplated thereof. And third, that the execution and the delivery of any other agreements, instruments, or documents ancillary or incidental to the documents referred to in this resolution, which may have been executed or delivered prior to the enactment of this resolution, regardless of the officer or other employee of the corporation who executed such agreement, instrument, or document, and regardless of any informality in such execution or delivery, are hereby ratified and approved and confirmed in all aspects. Sorry.
Need a long one for him. No problem. Moved by Councilor Jonker, seconded by Councilor Cody. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Test at 10. Item B, Treasurer Director Finance Donna DeFilippis. This memo is for information purposes only, which addresses the bylaw to set in the 2019 interim tax levy as well as for the penalty and interest. This bylaw will be presented later in the agenda. Item C. Free public skating event, February 9th and 10th. Mayor states, I would like to ask the clerk to please provide an update with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Mayor Balsma. Okay, Staff is looking at providing a free public skating event to promote the new MERS facility. That's being organized for Saturday, February 9th, from 6:30 to 7:30. That will be held in the old West Lincoln Arena. And on September 10th, from 1 to 2, a free skating event at the new MERS Arena. So it's kind of going out with the old and bringing in the new. The clerk, due to the uncertainty that the township will have occupancy prior to this event, advertising will most likely be at the last minute. It will not be advertised in the newspaper, but rather we'll be using township's digital sign at the hall, at the town hall here at the community center, as well as through the township's website, through Twitter, and signs will be posted in the old arena. So as soon as we are aware that we have occupancy, then we will advertise that event. So at this point, it's still tentative, and we'll advise council if all goes through as expected. Currently, the ice is being put in. Everything is going very well. They expect to be finishing up this weekend, which is actually ahead of schedule. As I was stating it earlier about the occupancy inspections, so we have a pre-inspection scheduled for this Wednesday, January 30th, with a final inspection hopefully taking place on February 6th. However, this will depend on the building inspector's availability and everything goes well with the building. Fall Construction currently has cleaners in the buildings who are starting to clean areas that are completed. The compressor room has pretty much been completed. The computer for the system has been installed today. And there's still lots of little things happening that still need to be finished, but all looks good so far.
Thank you very much for that update. This is a little bit of I just wanted to say there's a little bit of an idea that was floating around about a skate off and a skate on, and it allows people to kind of kiss the old arena goodbye in a public skate, reminisce, get all nostalgic like, shed a tear, and then have an opportunity to give a sneak peek. We're going to have a grand opening ceremony, but this is giving them the public an opportunity to skate around in the new facility. So any comments or questions?
Sorry, those dates again?
The 9th and 10th. The 9th and 10th.
The 9th and 10th of February, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I heard something else. Okay. So the transition was the 9th to the old, and then the 10th to the new is the transition, if everything goes well. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you for that verbal update. At this time, we have members of council, if they would like to remark on anything that they would like to get on the record. I'm going to start on my right. Councillor Cody?
I have no remarks at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Great.
Thank you.
Councillor Jonker?
I have no remarks, thank you.
I'm really appreciating this. Councillor Gannan?
I have a sad bit of news. Many of you know that the library is not able, as a library board, they aren't able to fundraise. So about 20 odd years ago, a Friends of the Library group was started. And a lady who was very involved with that for a great many years, Maria Ballard, passed away this week. And I just thought that the public might be interested to know that there is a service for her Friday afternoon at Merritt's, 1 o'clock. So visitation 2 hours prior to that. But Maria will be sadly missed. She, if you ever attended any of the book sales or the bake sales or whatever, she was always the older lady that sat at the end of the table collecting the money, but was well into her 80s and still always baked for those sales. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And Councillor Riley?
I have nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Trombetta? Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mary Ballsma. Okay, I just wanted to give everyone an update. With respect to, at the admin meeting, we spoke about police presence and some issues on South Grimsby Road 8. In follow-up to that, the fire chief had met with Staff Sergeant Rom.
Diagidio.
Yes, thank you. And advised that he would attend the Public Works and EMS open house in May. which I believe is normally held the Wednesday prior to Victoria Day weekend. However, he has suggested as an alternative a community public open house that could be held in the fire hall on a Saturday or an evening during the 3rd or 4th week of May, at which time he could bring a police car and perhaps other things such as, or other police things like there's a dog and doing a demonstration with the police dogs. Having the event at night or on a Saturday would provide opportunity for members of the public to attend that work during the day and during the week. But he did say that he could do one or the other, not both events, and he would wait for the direction in this regard. So I'm just letting you know that that's what he's suggested. If you want to do him involved with the one during the week here that we have on the Wednesday prior to Victoria Day, or we could also organize an event that would occur at night or on a Saturday.
Any comments or questions on that? On a personal level, I would favor coupling it with the fire chief and the EMS that's already there. It just makes the event a little bit more exciting. But again, there was that opportunity made. But yes, go ahead, Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm still kind of worried about how effective it's going to be to really I think. What am I trying to say here? We need to have a serious conversation with him. We need to get a better understanding, even what their plan is, even moving forward and growing as a community. And I think it's great that we can, make it easier and double back that with the plan or the event that's already organized. But I do want to see some kind of follow-up later where we can somehow create an opportunity to have that, maybe whether it's just yourself and someone else, but have that sit down and actually get a thorough understanding of what the future looks like for West Lincoln, because I think a lot of that's going to get lost in what I'll call the noise of the atmosphere there, and I just don't know how productive it'll actually be for in the name of getting stuff done.
Yep.
Putting it politely.
Fair enough.
So,
yeah.
anyways, thank you.
Okay. Does any member of council, moving on to new items of business, does any member of council have any new items of business? Seeing none, then we're going to move on to bylaws. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
I do, sir. Moved by myself and second by Councillor Cody that leave be granted to introduce bylaws numbers 2019-01, 2019-02, 2019-03. They're all 2019, so I'm going to go 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, 10, and 11. And that the same shall be considered to have been read at first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted. And the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, and any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Cody. Are there any comments, questions, or items to be pulled? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Number 17 is confidential matters, and there are no confidential matters, so I declare the meeting adjourned at the hour of 8:33. Thank you very much. Drive safe, and we'll see you next month.